Hello and welcome to another Game Maker guide. In this guide we will continue the work on the ship game that we have here. As you can see, now when I hold down the space bar, the gun shoots automatically based on the amount of time that we have set here. And I've also added in a second gun, which is a nice little spread gun here. And if you can see, there is also an effect down when I shoot the gun, a little muzzle flare we have going on. So now let's go back to our previous game and start editing here. The first thing that we'll do is create a timer on the firing of the guns so that we can hold down the space bar. So we want to click on the space bar event right here, which is right now press key event, key press event. We want to change that into keyboard space event. So now when we hold down the space bar, it will continually fire. So I'll show you what that looks like here, which is not really what we want. We want to have it be, see, it just keeps on going constantly. We don't want it to keep on going constantly. We want it to go at certain intervals. So now we need to escape back out. And the way we do that is we create a variable that continually ticks down, and once it gets underneath a certain point, then the gun is allowed to fire. But when it's above that point, it's not allowed to fire. So let's add an event here, create, go to our control tab, bring over our control or script block, put in our curly brackets. So first thing we need to do is create that variable. So we'll name that variable shoot. And shoot will equal 0, put a semicolon there at the end, because right now all we're doing is creating the variable. We're saying we're putting it in the create event of the object, because if we're going to use this variable, if we're going to change it at all, then it needs to be initialized. And so putting it in the create event of this object initializes it so that we can use it in the future. So we'll click OK here. And now we want to put well, the first thing we want to do is add a step event. Now, step events happen every single step, every single frame in the game. And they happen, so it's much more intensive on the system if you have a lot of objects and you're doing a lot of step events. But right now, it doesn't really matter at all because we only have one object. One object using the step event, that is. So curly brackets here. Now, what we want to do is have the shoot variable continually lower. So we'll say shoot minus equals 1 semicolon. And that means that every single step your object ship will continually move down that variable, decreasing it constantly. And we want to do that because as soon as the shoot reaches below 0, then the ship is allowed to shoot. So let's go back into our space event here, double click on the script, and instead of just instance create, we need to put an if statement in here. Now if you don't understand if statements, I do have a video on my channel describing an if statement, just a general idea of what it means and how it works. So assuming you have the general idea down, we'll type in if, if shoot less than sign 0, and put the right bracket in there. So what this says is if the variable shoot is less than 0, then this happens. And to define what this is, we'll put it in curly brackets. And I'll tab over here because it's easier to read that way. So inside the curly brackets here, we have instance create object bullet. So if shoot is below 0, then you create object bullet. And at that point, we need to have shoot equal a higher number. So let's say 15 for right now. So when shoot is under 0, then you'll create a bullet and shoot will equal 15. Which means that the next step, if I hold down the button, shoot will be 14, because it's decreasing by 1 in our step event over here. And so I will not create a bullet. It'll wait until it gets back below 15. So let's go back into the game and let's see what that looks like. Waiting for it to load. So now I'm holding down the space bar, and as you can see, instead of creating a solid line like we did last time, we're now shooting at specific intervals. We can change that to whatever we want, of course, but right now it's at 15. So every 15 frames, every 15 steps, we'll shoot a new bullet. So that's pretty cool. But the bullets are pretty standard now, pretty simple. So let's make it more interesting and have a spread shot. Let's add a new event here. Let's go to keyboard again. This time you can put whatever key you want, but I'm going to go with letters and choose Z. Just because if we're going to add in several of these things, you start at Z and go to X, C, and just keep on going down the road. You can have a lot of different buttons doing a lot of different things. And the simplest way is to simply copy the space script that's already here and then paste it back into our Z key. Double click on that. Now here we're going to do a somewhat of a complicated thing, and I'm not actually going to take a lot of time to explain what I'm doing here because I simply don't have enough time to fit it all in. But before instance create, we type in NNN equals, and then underneath that, NNN dot direction equals 80. So what this is saying is the NNN is establishing a variable that points to a specific object. So we're storing this object in this variable. When we say NNN dot, it's referencing that new object we just created. So we're changing the direction of the object we just created. And we want to create 3 of these. So you copy this, paste it, and then paste it again. And here we'll go back to 90, and here we'll go 110. So we're creating 3 different bullets, and we're setting the direction of those bullets to be a little bit to the left, straight up, and a little bit to the right. And then shoot is still 15. Now, we did set a direction in the create event of the bullet, direction 90. But this is initiated directly when you create the bullet. So when we are in our Z key here and we set the direction to 80, it will actually override that value we've established inside the bullet. So the bullets will not go 90 anymore. The bullets will go whatever we have specified here. So let's go back into the game and take a look at that. Waiting for it to load. Okay, now when I hold down the Z key, as you can see here, it creates 3 bullets, and one is going a little bit to the left, the other one is going straight up, and the third one is going a little bit to the right. So that's what we want. But we could use a little bit more visual feedback, so what we're going to create here, you know what, I forgot to do that. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to need to go into here and save. That I will probably explain in a different video. But now we're going to create a new sprite here. SP, we'll go gunfire, because it's the fire of the gun, the flash of the gun. And we'll load the sprite that I just went back and saved there as gunfire. Click OK. So now we've got our gunfire sprite. We need to create a gunfire object. So obj underscore gun fire, and the gunfire basically just flashes. It's there for a second, then it goes away. So we want to add a create event. Go to control, bring over our script block, curly brackets again, and we want to set an alarm this time. Now you can do this manually, but there are alarms built into GameMaker, and that's the simplest way, so that's what we're doing right now. So alarm, and then inside of the box brackets, not sure what they're called exactly, but they're underneath the curly brackets. Maybe there are brackets. Anyway, inside that we have several different alarms we can set, and you can see the alarms in your add event here. We have 11 of them we can use, and we're just going to use 0 right now. Doesn't really matter which one we use, but I'm going to use 0, and we're going to say equals 10. Now alarms work similar to what we set over here in our object ship. They will constantly count down. So in 10 steps, your alarm event will trigger. So we'll go add event, go to alarm, and alarm 0. So when alarm 0 triggers, we want to destroy the flash, the gunfire. So we'll go instance destroy in our alarm 0 event. So that's saying after 10 steps from the creation of the object, alarm 0 will trigger and it will destroy itself. Make sure we set the sprite. Then we'll need to go back into our object ship and we'll need to actually put it in here. So we can just copy the instance create bullet. We can paste in the same line but change this to gunfire. So now it will create a bullet and it will create the gunfire. Let's copy this and put it back into our Z key so that both of them will create that object. We only need to create this object once. We don't need to put it underneath every single one of these bullets, just at the bottom, because it's just created once. Click OK. And one other thing we want to do is have the depth. Now the depth is the order in which all these objects are written, are drawn on the page. So basically if we have a depth that is below other objects, it will be in front of those objects. So a depth of -1 means that the fire will be in front of the ship, which is what we want, because otherwise it would be behind the ship, much harder to see. So let's play this and see where we're at now. And as you can see now, it creates a little flash there, but the flash does not move with the ship. It flashes and it stays there, and it's just kind of awkward and weird. It's not what we're really going for. So let's go back into the object gunfire and make it stay with the ship. Simplest way to do that is to go into the step event, curly brackets, and every step we will change the X and Y coordinates of the gunfire to match the ship's. So we want to say X equals object ship dot X. So basically we're saying X, which is the X of the object we're currently in, which is your gunfire. So the X of the gunfire is now going to be the same as the X of the object ship. When we say object ship and then dot, that's saying the variable inside of that object. So object ship dot X is the X of the ship. We do the same for the Y. So we'll just copy and paste that, change that to Y and Y. So now every step the object gunfire will move to the same location as the object ship, their X and Y. So it will stay with the ship until it's destroyed. So let's go back in and test that out. And as you can see, now the gunfire moves nicely with the ship, and the ship has this gun, which is now set to only fire in specific intervals, and the spread shot, which also fires in those intervals with the nice little gun flare there. So there is your next video in the ship game series.